Welcome back to the Cowboys Report. I'm Tom Downey, and today we've got a lot to cover about Micah Parsons, the Cowboys superstar defender whose contract situation is steadily becoming one of the biggest stories of the offseason. There have been significant updates from two of the most respected voices covering the NFL, Adam Schefter and Tom Pelissero, and their insights have added both clarity and a few new wrinkles to this high-stakes negotiation. Before we dive into all the details about what Schefter and Pelissero reported, I want to remind everyone that we're still running the Micah decision pool. If you want to predict exactly when Micah Parsons finally signs his extension, or in the unlikely scenario that he gets traded, you can join in by going to chatsports.com/Micah. It's $5 to enter, and you can Venmo me directly at @WhatGoingDowney. The pot is growing fast, already up to $20, and the winner gets half of whatever we raise, so get your picks in before the clock runs out. Let's start with the latest from Adam Schefter, who reported that the Cowboys and Micah Parsons have had what he called positive conversations throughout this offseason. According to Schefter, there is a widespread belief among people around the league that a deal will get finalized sometime this summer. And when it does happen, it's expected to be historic, a contract that will make Micah the highest-paid defensive player in NFL history, surpassing the enormous deals that have already reset the market for star defenders. Schefter described it as a massive number, the kind of contract that will probably leapfrog what Myles Garrett earned, and it would cement Micah as the benchmark for all other non-quarterbacks looking for big paydays. But even though Schefter says the deal could be coming in the next few weeks, we've been here before, and it's worth pointing out that the phrase "coming weeks" lands us right around the start of training camp. That's always been the target window for the Cowboys to get this kind of business wrapped up, but it's also why some of this process feels more drawn out than it should be. This is the time frame when they always end up finalizing deals that arguably could have been done months earlier. If you've been following the Cowboys closely, you know this isn't a new pattern. When they have to pay a star, whether it was Ezekiel Elliott, Dak Prescott, Amari Cooper, or now Micah, they often wait right up until the deadline pressure kicks in. And it's not that this particular negotiation is especially complicated. In fact, I'd argue this is one of the simpler deals to complete, because both sides already know what the numbers are supposed to look like. Micah's camp understands he's earned a record-setting contract, and the Cowboys understand that too. The frustration comes from the fact that neither side has shown the urgency to close it out before the price inevitably goes up even further. Remember, every week that passes increases the risk that another star resets the market, which then drives Micah's price tag even higher. That's why a lot of fans, and I'd bet Micah himself, would prefer to see this finalized before training camp opens. Nobody wants this turning into a distraction right as the season preparations begin. Tom Pelissero added another perspective that sheds some light on why the deal hasn't closed yet. Speaking on the Rich Eisen show, Pelissero suggested that the real sticking point might not be the money itself, but the length of the contract. He explained that while the dollar amounts are basically aligned, everyone seems to agree that Micah deserves to be at the very top of the market. The question is whether Micah wants to be locked in all the way until his early or mid-30s set. For example, if the Cowboys push for a 6 or 7 year deal, it could limit Micah's chances to negotiate another big extension while he's still in his prime. That's an important consideration for any elite player, because the salary cap keeps climbing, and a contract that looks massive today could look outdated in just a few seasons. Pelissero pointed out that the Cowboys have a history of preferring 5-year extensions. That's what they wanted for Dak, for DeMarcus Lawrence, for a bunch of other cornerstone players. But from the agent's side, Shorter contracts are usually preferable because they let the player hit the market again sooner. If you think back to some of the Cowboys' older contracts, like Tyron Smith's 8-year extension, you can see why players have become more cautious. Those deals used to have team-friendly structures where the guarantees would dry up long before the end of the contract, and by the last couple of years, the player was massively underpaid compared to the exploding market. Agents learned from those examples, and now it's extremely rare for any star to sign anything longer than 5 years unless the guarantees are astronomical. In Micah's case, he's still only 26 years old. That means a 4 or 5 year deal puts him right around 30 or 31 when he can cash in again, assuming he stays healthy and productive. From everything I've heard, that's probably the range they'll settle on. A 3-year deal is almost certainly too short, and a 6 or 7 year deal is probably off the table because it just doesn't make sense for Micah's camp. So the question becomes what the final numbers look like. Right now, the highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL is Jamar Chase, who just agreed to an extension worth over $40 million per year. Micah is likely targeting a number that slightly surpasses that, perhaps something around $40.5 million annually. On top of that, the guaranteed money could be in the neighborhood of $125 million or more. Would that be shocking to anyone? I doubt it. That's simply the price of locking up one of the league's most dominant defensive players. And the Cowboys know they can't afford to let him even think about testing free agency. Even if it sounds like an eye-popping figure, the reality is that every year you wait, the cost only climbs and you end up paying more than if you had been proactive. That's why smart teams often choose to overpay early so that within a couple of years, the deal actually looks like a bargain. One more thing to remember is that as soon as Micah's extension is done, other stars will use it as a new benchmark. You can be sure that players like T.J. Watt will look at Micah's deal and ask for something even bigger when their own contracts come due. That's why there's real urgency for the Cowboys to move first, rather than letting someone else set the market and force them to chase an even higher number. In fact, I'm personally more worried about Watt's deal getting finalized before Micah's, which could push the figures even higher. For now, though, it looks like everyone involved is bracing for this to be the richest contract ever given to a defensive player, and maybe the richest ever given to any non-quarterback. Before we wrap up, I want to remind you that if you haven't subscribed yet, this is the perfect time to do it. We're in a sub-battle for the month of June, and while we've closed some ground on Ravens Rundown, they're still ahead of us. I know we have the biggest audience, so let's prove it by hitting that subscribe button for free Cowboys coverage every single day. In the end, I do believe this deal is going to get done. It might take a little longer than it should, but I think Micah Parsons will get his record-setting contract and stay with the Cowboys for years to come. When that happens, we'll be here to break down every detail and explain exactly what it means for the team's future. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next show.